Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to make a sort of Valentine's card that you could change the sentiment and use it for something else. It doesn't have to be Valentine's-y. And so I have some Bristol Smooth cardstock, which is like my new love at the moment. It's ultra smooth, Bristol Smooth kind of cardstock. And this is some Strathmore cardstock. And I've used the largest of the stitched lawn fawn dies to cut out a panel that I'm going to use for my background. So to start with the background, I'm using some distress ink in Spiced Marmalade and a blending brush, and I'm just going to get some ink on there. Now it looks a bit blotchy at the moment, which it was, but the more I added, the more it covered, and Bristol Smooth is really good for inking. It's so beautiful. The ink glides on top. And it's just cool. You have to try it to see it and understand it. So I've got a whole whack of the old marmalade on there, and then I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to ink the other side, but I'm going to use a paper towel just to keep my hands out of the ink, because it will still be very wet and sort of sitting on top of the paper. And then I'm going to take some picked raspberry distress ink and go from the other end, and again get as much of that on there as I need, and then I'll start to blend the two together to get hopefully a nice even-ish blend. I'm not too worried because I'm going to spritz it with water, of course. When do I not? It's not very often that I don't. And yeah, and just getting that colour on there and blending as much as I can. So now I've done that piece. Before I do any spritzing, I am going to do all the inking first. So this next piece is from the Leafy backdrop die, and this is the portrait one from Lawn Fawn. And this is I guess the tree part, like what would be the leaves in the background. There are separate leaves in that die set, but this is for like if you want bulk of a tree, if that makes any sense. So I have some twisted citron that I'm going to start with of distress ink, and again this is Bristol Smooth. All my cardstock today is Bristol Smooth except the card base, which I will add this piece to later on. You don't need to see me do that. You just stick it to the front. It will fit the size of an A2 card. And then I'm taking some Mowed Lawn. These are my two favourite greens together. I don't know what it is, but I love them. And just getting a nice blend on there. And then I'm also using my Simon Says stamp, Positively. Everything. I love that thing. It's so cool. Anyway, I digress. So this is the Leafy backdrop that I've got, and Leafy tree, I think it's called. And I'm using some post-it tape around the edges because I want the border around it to stay white, but I want the tree, I want to be able to ink the tree. So I'm just adding that around the edges where, so that I don't get any ink on the border itself, and starting with some brushed corduroy distress ink over the top half of the tree. So I'm going from the lightest dark. I kind of felt like the base of the tree would be darker than the top of the tree because like it's older than the top of the tree. I don't know why. Who knows? And then I'm taking some Walnut Stain and starting at the base and working my way up to blend the two together, and I think it looks quite nice. You don't have to do that. You could just use one colour and that'd be fine, or just start at the bottom with one colour in it and add enough ink and then have a less heavy hand near the top. And then I'm spritzing them with water, but I did cover that border because I didn't want the rest of it to get too wet from the moisture, so that's why I covered it. No other reason. So once that's done, then I will take the background piece and I'll do the same thing, and then just use a paper towel to mop up the excess. I do love how this looks. And I'm using a distress sprayer, which I've had for so long. It's like It's a different colour to what it was when I first got it, because it's so old now, but it's still going. Excuse me. So those are now spritzed and everything. So I'm going to leave them to dry just off to the side there. And I'm taking the special delivery add-on, box add-on, stamp and die set. I actually got these for Christmas from my other half. And I'm using, again, Bristol Smooth, because I want to do some no-line colouring. And I'm using my Tim Holtz stamping platform, I think that's what it's called. And I'm laying out all the images that I want, and I'm going to want multiples of some of these images so that I can create this little scene, because I love doing that. So I will be restamping some of these again and again. And to start with, I'm going to use some ink on 3, the fade out ink, which is meant for no line colouring. I'm not the best at no line colouring, and you will see that, but I think it is genuinely just a practice thing. I love the look of it. Nicole Spore does amazing stuff when it comes to no line colouring. She really knows how to do that, and I'm sure there's so many more of you out there who do. But I think this is the second video, and probably maybe the second maybe the third video that I've done with some no line colouring in it, and I love the look. I just need to practice more. And I think also I'm a bit heavy-handed when it comes to colouring, so that probably doesn't help. You need to be a little bit more delicate than I am. Anyway, so I've stamped the first lot on, and I did stamp it twice because for me my eyesight is not very good either, so having just a double stamp of that ink helps. It won't stay there. The whole idea with this ink is that it will fade over time, and you will just be left with what you use to colour it in. So I'm going to use the Clean Colour Real brush markers to do this. There are other markers that I know that others of you have used to do no line colouring, and I believe I've seen some of you use Copics to do no line colouring, which that is just a whole other world for me. Sigs are, for those who don't know, are a water-based marker, so yeah, very easy to use. But yeah, I think those who do any of this no line colouring is just amazing. But like I say, I need to practice more, but I do love it. I think it's such a nice look. But if you weren't into no line colouring, you could easily stamp these with a black or a brown ink, or whatever colour ink you want, and just use your Sigs, as long as it's either a hybrid ink, which means you can use alcohol markers or water-based markers with it, or products, or like a permanent ink, so that it doesn't move when you use your watercolours on it. So that's just try and think either hybrid or opposite ink to the product that you're trying to use, or the markers or whatever. So for the little signs that I want to put onto the boxes, I've used my Versafine Onyx black ink for that. So I'm just getting those stamped on there, and then I realised I ran out of space for the little hanging thing, so I will stamp and cut that out in a bit. So now we get to colour in, and like I say, I'm not the best at this, but I make it work. So I have 2 shades of brown here. The colours will be listed below. You guys know I will do that now, but this is my understanding, because like I say, this is kind of new for me-ish. I've watched a lot of videos, but this is newish. So my understanding is you outline the image in the darker colour, and then you use the slightly lighter colour to drag that darker colour out, so you get this no line effect. So it doesn't look like a stamped image anymore. It looks like you've just hand drawn it and just gone in and done it. So it's very cool. That's my small understanding of it, but it still looked alright. But I wanted more of that darker colour to come into it. In hindsight, that first box, and I'm sorry I'm turning this around, it's just easier to try and get my hands, keep my hands out of all the ink. But I wanted more of that darker colour, so I actually go back and add more. The other thing to do is with the lighter colour is if you find that you're taking too much of the darker colour into your main image, just scribble it off, because it's probably the pen that's picked up a bit of that the darker colour. Whereas for me on these bits here, I really wanted to just, I don't know, give it some shadowing and stuff like that. So I was kind of experimenting at the same time. And I do like how it turned out. It's a bit messier. Like, I need to work on refining how I'm doing this. Like I say, I'm a little heavy-handed with stuff. So, and that's okay too. But I just, yeah, this is the nibs on this are very fine. They're like a really fine point, which is good, but not when you're me. So yeah. So just getting the boxes coloured in. What I should have done in hindsight as well, it's a wonderful thing again. I should have maybe done 1 or 2 boxes and then shown you the rest of it to save you watching this. So if you're sticking with me for the colouring, fabulous. Thank you. I know there are a lot of us who and I'm one of them, who love watching people colour in. So that's why I thought I'd leave it in for you guys, or at least the majority of it anyway. So just getting this next box. And the other thing I like about the boxes is that this box that I'm colouring now, you can actually turn, which it was happy accident, didn't think about it at the time. If you turn it on its side, you can actually have it standing up. I even stamped one that way and I still didn't clock it until I was actually putting the thing together. But you can actually stand it up on its side and then you've got a different look, but it's one stamp. So think about that with some of the things that you have. Try and turn them a different way, depending what they are, of course. So now I've got all the dies and I'm going to stick it, I'm going to use some post-it tape and just stick it to that to get them ready to be die cut. I'm using a magnetic platform, which actually made life a little easier, even though I have to still add a bit of post-it just to make sure it doesn't move. But I actually decided, my machine's right next to me now. I did some overhauling over the Christmas holidays and reorganized a few things. I think I posted something on my Instagram if you guys want to go and check it out, but that was a slightly different thing. But I just did some reorganizing of things and paper and cardstock and everything else, and my machine, my Sizzix machine, is now next to me while I'm working. So it's actually easy when I'm on camera, much easier than having to stop my camera, go and die cut something and come back. I can just quickly do it next to me. And then it also saves a bit of time. Well, for me, not for you, because you're still watching. So what I'm doing here, and this is a trick I learned, if you have to start with a brand new set of plates, of clear plates, cutting plates, for your machine. But in theory, I think this should work for any machine. I've got a Big Shot, but this should work for any die cutting machine that you have, even the electronic ones. I reckon this would work for. And what it is the bottom plate, the one I'm now, that is underneath the paper, I pressed it in the middle after I'd run that first lot through, and if it gives in the middle, then I flip the plate over, and whichever side has the least give, so in other words there's no movement in the middle of that plate, so when I'm pressing on it it's not moving, that's the side I cut into. And the top plate is then clear. It will still get a bit messed up, but it's not the one that I'm cutting into all the time. So eventually when that bottom one that I do cut into is completely done, then what is the top plate now becomes the bottom plate, and then I'll buy a new set, and then I'll have a brand new clear top plate. This is the only plate that I have that is not warped. My Gemini one is like mad warped. But I didn't know about this trick beforehand, so I do wonder if it'll work for the other machines, but it works beautifully in a manual machine. That plate is pretty straight, so I'm really chuffed with that, because that's really handy, especially when you've got a magnetic platform. If the cutting plates are too warped, it can't magnetize. It can't, you know what I mean? It can't cling to the magnet. If that made any sense. So I found that really handy. It was a super tip. Don't know where I found that from, but it was on YouTube somewhere, but I can't remember who it was. But yeah, it's so good, and it works so well. So I've now stamped the little like hanging string carrier. I don't know what you call it. And I'm just die cutting that as well. Or I will do in a minute. Just getting that done. And now we can start to put these parts and pieces, together, so that we can actually get this card finished. So I, first of all, didn't know... I'm going to put these together first, I guess. I was really impressed. When you've got the die set, normally I don't have a die set. I usually use my scan and cut to die cut my pieces. So I was really impressed though, because this little bow that goes around the box, the like solid box or closed boxes, if you line it up just completely edge to edge, if you line up both pieces, it puts it in the right place. As long as you got the right way up, of course, but you'll know that from the way that you go to put it on there. And I thought that was really clever. I mean, lawn fawn think of everything, but that was really clever, because that was so handy for me not to have to try and figure out exactly where it should line up. I just lined up the edges of the cardstock, and that just fit perfect. And it looks good. So I was impressed. It's a little thing, but it impresses me. So I'm getting all the closed boxes done. And then I will get the some of the little labels. That's probably a word. Some of the labels on there, and I know these open boxes are not meant to have, like, the label would be under the open flap of the box, but yeah, we're just going with it. And then I was trying to figure out how this thing worked. I couldn't for the life of me work it out. I think in hindsight, those back two shorter pieces should actually sort of almost like hook behind the box. That actually would make more sense. But I didn't do that, but it's fine. It was the first time I was playing with this, and I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing. Should have watched the lawn fawn video on it. That would have helped. But I do think they would look better if they were just slightly behind the actual box. But again, it's quite easy. The front part of it is actually easy to line up because of the sort of kink in the length. You'll see in a second. So I'm putting my tree together. So I've added some glue to the back of the tree trunk, I guess, or the branches, so that I can stick the leafy part on. And now I'm deciding which way I actually want this to go, because I've got the green as an added colour in there. I just wanted to make sure I was happy with which way I was going to have, whether I was going to have the pink coming up from the bottom into the orangey colour, which is what I went with, which was the original idea. But you know, when you look at a piece of paper and you turn it around and you're like, oh, hang on, that could be interesting. Yeah, it was one of those moments. But this definitely worked out better. So you see, I think I'm putting this together now. Yeah. Those shorter back pieces, I think, should have gone behind the box. They look like they sat on top of the box, which is fine, but I might have to just twiddle that afterwards and just, make it right. Because when you're lining up where the kink is in the straps, it lines up with the edge of the box. So I hope you can sort of see that on film. So it makes sense that those other two little ones would be at the back of the box. But I was in the flow, so we went with it. And then there is a little die in the stamp set, in the die set, sorry, that will actually cut. It's just a cut line. But it will cut an opening in the quote unquote open boxes, so that you can then stuff stuff inside them, which is what I do in a minute. At this point, I was just trying to figure out how to make the boxes look like they were lying flat on the ground, if that makes sense. And I even contemplated putting a piece of, like, a die cutting a little bit of grass or something for the front, to make it look like they were in the grass. But I didn't do that in the end, and I made it work. But it bothered me in a way, because it is great because they look 3D and I love that, but I couldn't get them to line up so they looked like they were just sitting flush on the ground. I don't know why, but my brain couldn't. It's like I needed something else in the background for it to make sense. So perhaps a bit of grass, even layered, 2 little layers of grass would have worked a treat. But anyway, and then I stuck some of the labels on. Again, the special delivery ones, I know, should go under the flap of the box, but it still works out, and I think it still looks cute. So this is where I realized that I have this other die. I'm going to stick the label on first. And I think that looks cute because it's airmail and it's like hanging in the tree. So this is where I grabbed the little die. You see, it's just a little cut line. That's all it is. And I'm going to I'm going to cut into both those boxes, and then I'm going to fill them with those hearts that are to the right there. So I've done this off camera, and got them all prepped and ready. And now I have a better idea of where everything's going to go. That is the fun part of this, but it's also sometimes can be a bit frustrating. So I now have figured out where everything's going to go. But before I stick anything down, I just want to get my sentiment on. And so from the same stamp set, I'm going to stamp a little message to say, and then Happy Valentine's Day. There's a whole raft of different things, from hello to birthday to whatever else. It's a special delivery, so it could be anything to do with a parcel or a present. So you could even use this at Christmas if you've got some Christmas sentiments to go with it and make them look like Christmas presents or something. That would be really cute. So although I'm sticking them flat, like I say, I wanted to get that sentiment on there. And I am just layering these. Like I say, I had figured out roughly where I wanted to put them. And it was when I stuck this second one on, I thought, hang on. To get them to look kind of normal, if I slightly overhang them over the border, the white border, they look a little bit normal. So I just carefully unhooked, took that one off and restuck it, and it looks much better. It was just like there wasn't a grounding, or there wasn't enough ground underneath the boxes, and that's what was frustrating me, because my eye just wasn't in where it should have been. And then just helping a few areas just to stick down a bit better. Just be aware that obviously it's a water-based marker. They are likely to, and the distress inks, they're likely to reactivate if there's any moisture on it, even with wet adhesive. So just be aware of that. So the last thing I wanted to do was take the heart stamp set, and I'm using the same color ink on the same area, same color area. So a couple of the marmalade and then the raspberry hearts in those coloured areas, if that makes any sense. And that's it. I will stick this to a card base that kind of works with it, but a white card base would work just fine. And then you have it, guys. A special delivery for someone special. It's all of you, really, because I can't do this channel without you. You guys are awesome. So happy everything. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.